Okay, so I just want to show you how failure is judged. But before I do that, I want to give you some examples of what failure can look like so you can avoid it, of course. So let's just jump into that if we can. Firstly, common things you need to avoid. Um, One of the things that a lot of inventors do is they circle back into R&D and create another version of what they've got. And the reason for that is it's very tempting if your sweet spot is research and development and you're in commercialization, you have money for commercialization, and somebody says, could you make another one, another version of this that has this outlet or that feature? And straight away you tend to want to go in and redevelop that. And as a result, you're going to spend all your commercialization money in R&D and you're going to fail. So you cannot afford to do that. A lot of people take way too long to get something done. They've planned it out. They say that's going to take 3 months. They try and do it themselves. And ultimately, it takes 6 months or 12 months. And that extra time costs money. So trying to do it yourself is setting yourself up for failure. And ultimately, people will judge you on that. Now, if you're not able to work to a budget, then you need somebody to help you to work to a budget and somebody who can work alongside you and keep you to the budget. If you start out with a shortfall, that is, you wanted to raise, let's say, $100,000, but you only raised 40,000, and you think, I can do it for 40,000, I just have to make some shortcuts. Chances are you're going to run out of funds and it's going to be worse because you're going to have a very upset investor. Now, you also need to have factored in any contingency that may happen. And so if you do run out of funds, you've got something to fall back on. And we talk about in other versions of the other lessons in this section about how you can use non-cash bartering to get yourself up. If your funds run out before patenting, that becomes a next level problem because you haven't delivered what you promised to your investors. And as a result of that, something's failed. The blame will be yours. It won't be the company, it won't be the project, it'll be you. You're the one that put the budget together, you're the one that supervised the work. And if it's not completed and it's not on time and it's not, and you've run out of funds and can't complete, then that failure is your failure. Now, if you need more money before you pre-scale a project, then you haven't added value at that point to be able to issue shares at a higher price. And therefore you can't go back and say, well, now we've added all this value to it, so our $1 shares are now worth $2.50. You can't do that if you haven't made it to pre-scale. You've still got $1 shares, and that's pretty much all they're going to get for you. You also need to understand that investors always have a non-dilution clause. In most cases, they'll have a non-dilution clause which says, I'm putting in, let's say, $1 million for 50% of the project, and even and up to the point where we pre-scale, I'll still have 50%. At that point, we're going to dilute again. But in the meantime, if anything goes wrong and we have to get to pre-scale, somebody else is going to dilute, not me. And that somebody else is going to be the inventor in every case. So the loss will always be on you. You'll experience that further dilution. So what happens when this all goes wrong? I can tell you it's not pleasant. Firstly, most people will seek to replace the failed component. And that failed component is actually you. It's not the project, it's not the company, it's actually you. If you have to surrender budget control to a third party, you're on the outside and you're asking for funds to keep going for each of your sections. You're probably going to be monthly reporting or weekly reporting to a third party. Could be a group, could be the rest of all the shareholders. It could be just the one shareholder. But either way, you no longer have control. You need to raise the shortfall from your shares. It's another option you have. So if, for instance, you've given someone 50% on non-dilution to pre-scale and you've run out of funds, you own 50%, you probably have to go and raise some more money, whatever that amount is. If it gets you over the line, somebody's going to take 50% of your shares. And therefore, you're starting out pre-scale with 25% of a project you had 100% of before you funded it. You cannot afford to do that. You can't expect existing inventors to share the losses that you make. They won't do it. They won't go in, they won't dilute themselves. They will want you to, you're the one that messed up, you're the one that's going to have to fix it. You might get sent to a technical advisory panel within that group and taken out of your supervision of R&D. and a new executive officer might be put in charge of the company. It could be that he's temporary, but he's going to be there for a little while, and that person is going to manage everything from budgets to the growth to priorities on what's spending for what's left and raising capital. So it could be you're relegated to that technical advisory panel and then make no more decisions on the company in terms of R&D or growth. If so, you need to make sure that you prepare the brief for that executive officer, because otherwise that person will control everything you do. And that is not pleasant, believe me. Okay, so let's give you an idea of what happens if you don't raise the money or you run out of money. And I wanted to give you a good picture of what can go wrong. And believe me, that all can go wrong. Okay,